Thank you for this opportunity to speak about the value of the global Stella Maris network. Stella Maris is a global maritime charity that exists to serve seafarers and fishers without regard for any factor other than need. We work in over 60 countries around the world, across 300 ports. This brief video encapsulates the work of our 1,000 chaplains and volunteers around the world on a daily basis.
Strangers in a foreign land, a lot of them, so it's really spending time with people. It's somebody different going on board from the normal crew. We talk about the 5 F's, it's finance, family, future, football and faith. Sometimes we deal with wages, health problems or bullying on board. Guys actually get to send money home. It's amazing the amount of things you get involved with when you're on board.
I met Bep when he came into the river on one of the vessels. He was a happy-go-lucky guy. His wife had had triplets. After another visit, it turned out that Bep was worried about the hospital bills. They were all in incubators and one was quite poorly.
The smallest one was under a kilo. They were never going to be able to afford it. The medical expenses had gone up to £8,600. Peter came on board and said he would approach the trustees. They are really grateful, you know. It's heartwarming.
So I think us spending time and helping solve welfare issues does help the crew, the captain, the industry. You've got a happier guy, somebody goes back to work with a better attitude, and his shipmates will see the difference in them as well. We go on board and we just want to give. I think that makes the difference.
Seafarers are among the heroes of the COVID-19 pandemic. When the world went into lockdown, seafarers kept the global economy moving. Due to the pandemic, the crew change crisis, and ongoing supply chain challenges, the issue of seafarer welfare has assumed greater prominence than it has had for many years. As a maritime charity rooted in the Catholic Church, we asked Pope Francis to add his voice to those calling for the rights of seafarers to be protected. Pope Francis responded. And he said, "Look at the real heroes who come to light in these days. They are not famous, rich, and successful people. Rather, they are those who are giving themselves in order to serve others." Stella Maris considers it a privilege to serve these great men and women. The following brief video looks at some of the serious issues we deal with and demonstrates how our global network is utilised to provide care. In June last year, one of our chaplains visited a vessel shoreside in the port of Tyne in the UK and spoke to a Filipino crew member. One of his Filipino crewmates had died in his sleep, and the initial cause of death was said to be heart attack. The seafarer said that the crew were okay, but our chaplain knew from long experience that this death would have a huge effect on them. As the vessel was about to depart, leaving the deceased's body behind in the UK for medical investigation, our chaplain gave the crew holy water to bless the deceased seafarer's cabin and gave care packages for all the crew. Prayers were said for their deceased colleague and the crew's safe onward passage. Shortly afterwards, the vessel departed for the United States, where we contacted the chaplain in the next port of call, New Haven, on the east coast of the United States, and we asked our colleague if she would visit the vessel when it arrived. The vessel docked in New Haven for a short stay of only a few hours, but our chaplain had been able to get special approval from the United States Custom and Border Protection in Boston to access the vessel and visit the crew. Many of the crew were sleeping, as they had been up all night coming through Long Island Sound, but she was able to visit 6 of the crew, maintaining social distance. They talked about their deceased colleagues, shared their feelings about his death, and that they had not been able to sleep for over a week due to the impact of his death. They had not been told the cause of his death, which worried them. The deceased seafarer was supposed to have gone home with one of his colleagues, but because of the pandemic, they were not able to make arrangements for them to leave the ship. Prayers were said on the ship and the crew were given gifts. The next port of call was Wilmington, also in the United States, so our chaplain contacted her Stella Maris colleague there to ensure the crew would get another visit. This brief example encapsulates the ability of Stella Maris to offer psychological, pastoral, and practical support to seafarers across time and distance, thanks to our global network. Simple but effective. On another occasion, a ship management company contacted Stella Maris to request support for one of their vessels, which was moored in Ortona, a small port on the North Italian Adriatic coast. The multinational crew had suffered a spate of family bereavements. The Russian second engineer's father-in-law, the Filipino AB's father, the Ukrainian captain's father, and the Polish second mate's grandmother. The company asked if we could get someone on board to talk to the men, because that would be helpful and much appreciated. Due to COVID-related restrictions in place in Italy, it was not possible for any of our Italian-based chaplains to get to the vessel before it departed. But the ship's next port of call was Barcelona, approximately a week later, when we were able to arrange 2 visits to the ship. Our Stella Maris colleagues visited the vessel in the morning and spoke to a very grateful captain shortly before he and the second engineer handed over their duties on the ship in order to be repatriated. In the afternoon, our chaplain in Barcelona was able to meet with 2 Filipino seafarers and say a prayer for the crew members' relatives who had passed away. He also brought a Bible, some posters, and other practical resources. Stella Maris's expanding network enables us to provide unrivaled continuity of care for seafarers at the most difficult times. This final audio recording is of a seafarer on board a vessel stuck in Uruguay.
When my father died, as the eldest son, I had to provide for my mother and 3 siblings. So, for $200 United States a month, I signed up as a deckhand for 2 years. The fishing vessel sailed into Montevideo Harbor in July to resupply with food, fuel, and water after months at sea. But no one and nothing could come aboard. COVID had arrived in Uruguay in March, and the country's borders were sealed. Our supplies started running low. First, fruits and vegetables disappeared off the table, then meat. Then only a trickle of water was coming out of the taps. And I had no money. My wages had never been paid. Two of my mates came down with fever. I thought I would die. And then one day in late August, a miracle did happen. Stella Maris's chaplain stood on the harbor with a truckload of food, warm water, clothing, SIM cards, prepaid phone cards, masks, medical supplies, books, magazines. But Stella Maris did much more. They pestered the port authority, the owners, the Philippine embassy, and maybe the Uruguay government as well, to allow us to be repatriated. After 2 years, 7 months, and 48 hours, I was back home. Without Stella Maris, I'd never have made it. I'd be freezing and starving in Montevideo Harbor, or more likely, dead. I doubt that I'll soon be going out to sea again.
Stella Maris exists to support seafarers wherever they are in the world. Through our global network, we have the reach to provide assistance beyond that of most maritime organisations. And in supporting seafarers, we are adding massive value to the operations and individuals behind them. Please get in touch to find out how you can support what we do. Thank you.